Hey everybody! I just wanted to hop in here and record this video about insurance recoupments. So we've all heard the horror stories of insurance companies asking for repayment or clawbacks of funds that they've already paid us, and it seems to be the biggest fear for most providers taking insurance. In fact, it actually stops some clinicians from taking insurance because they're afraid it's going to happen. So I just had it happen to me, and it's very frustrating. They were asking for over $800 back. So needless to say, it made me really sit down and think about it, and then I wanted to record this video to let you guys know what you can do about it if it happens to you. So when it happened, I read the letter. I was pretty angry at first, and I got the request, and I went through all the thoughts. Well, I'm not going to pay it back, or the client's going to have to pay this back, or why am I even taking insurance? I went through all that stuff, and lastly, I thought, is this my fault? Did I make a mistake somehow, and that's why I have to pay it back? So I think these thoughts are pretty normal for most people. Once I calmed down and I was able to think it through a little bit, I took some actions to protect myself. And I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm hoping I'm not going to have to pay it back. I'll talk about it a little bit more throughout this video, what the situation was and how I'm handling it. But first, I just want to give you a little bit of education around insurance recoupments. So when the insurance company wants their money back, this is called a recoupment. And essentially, the insurance company believes they've paid us too much money and that that we need to pay it back, basically. So I want to review the reasons why they would have overpaid you in the first place and also explain some solutions to help you. So first, the client may have an additional or secondary insurance and they forgot to tell you about it. So this has happened to me quite a few times, especially like my Medicare clients. This can be solved pretty easily. You can call the client and ask for their secondary insurance plan or their other plan that they might have. You can find out which one is the primary plan. Usually it's the other one that they forgot to tell you about, and that's why you're getting this recoupment request to begin with. So next, if you're in network with the new primary insurance that you have, all you need to do is just go file a claim with them instead, and then there'll be a secondary claim. Filing a secondary claim is a little bit of a process, and I address it in other videos, so I'm not going to get into it right now, but this will fix the reason for this particular recoupment request. You will have to pay it back to the insurance company, but you'll get paid by the new plan instead. So hopefully that works and you're in network with the primary insurance. If you're not in network, you can try to file the claim as an out-of-network provider. Sometimes that works if the client has out-of-network benefits. If they don't, you're going to need to collect the money from the client because they failed to give you accurate information when you started working together. So essentially it's going to be their responsibility if you can't get payment from another insurance plan. So a second reason they might ask for money back is the insurance paid the claim twice, and perhaps you accidentally filed the same claim twice. In this case, you'll need to check and see if you made a mistake. And if you did, of course, you're going to have to pay it back. It happens sometimes. If you didn't make the mistake, you'll need to appeal the request for repayment and explain to them why it's their error. So another reason that you can be asked for money back is the client's policy has termed and they no longer have that policy. So this does happen sometimes. It's happened to me, like a client gets a new job or the company gets a new insurance plan or the policy number's changed. There's all kinds of reasons this can happen. If this is the case, you'll need to call the client and see if they have a new policy. And hopefully it's one that you take and you can just refile the claim for the data service with the new insurance company. If not, the client is also going to be responsible here. It's their job to keep us updated if there's any changes. So, hopefully you have great policies in place and you've got a credit card on file. I do have these policy templates available in my course. If you're enrolled already, please check them out. Make sure you're using these policy templates to sort of bulletproof your practice and make sure that you're not going to run into this situation if a client gives you the wrong information or for policy terms. So another reason they might ask for money back could be that they paid the wrong person. Sometimes this happens. This happened to me before when I worked with a group practice. I don't always pay close attention to payments I'm getting. I really just pay attention to when I'm not getting payments from an insurance company. So sometimes things slip through. You could just go back and check it and see if it's the insurance company's mistake, and you have to pay it back, obviously, if it was a different clinician it was meant to go to, or if for some reason by accident they sent it to your NPI instead of somebody else's. So like I said, if this is the case, you have to pay it back, but it's understandable because it really didn't belong to you in the first place. So another situation, and the reason I'm being asked for $800 back, is that they said there was a change in the fee schedule. So this one got by me. I don't recall any letters about fee schedule changes, but the insurance companies do send me about 50 letters a year. And admittedly, I don't always pay attention to them. I know I probably should, and I probably will more so after this. But, I would just encourage you to pay attention to stuff like that, because I don't remember a fee schedule change at all. So after some investigation on my part, they're saying that they were paying me at a physician rate by accident. So it's kind of a mess, because this was an insurance company I have a single case agreement with, and I thought the rate was at an out-of-network rate. So I am going to appeal it just to see what happens, because it's sort of a unusual situation anyway. So that's another reason that sometimes they'll ask for money back. Another thing that can happen is a very rare overpayment issue, and that's called subrogation. So this is basically when the insurance claims were paid in relation to an accident. This has happened to me a few times. The insurance company wants to be paid back because a lawsuit was settled, and the insurance company has discovered that they're not actually responsible for paying for the claims that they paid for. In this case, you're still going to want to collect the money back from the client or the settlement lawyer. Either way, you can get paid for this by the client, by the lawyer, from the lawsuit payment, and pay the insurance company back if they're requesting it. So this last one I want to talk about is everyone's biggest fear. It's the medical record recoupment. So usually this will occur after an audit's happened. I've personally never had this happen, but I've heard it does, and it's really scary to think about. It scares me to think about it. So make sure that you read all your insurance contracts and you're including all the required documentation when you're seeing your clients. Make sure you do thorough assessments, thorough progress notes, and discharge summaries. I address all these topics in other videos, but be sure you research this and have a lot of good forms in place. Make sure your progress note is solid, it addresses medical necessity, all of that stuff. Anyway, I wanted to talk about some reasons for recoupment in relation to medical records reviews and some solutions to avoid this from happening. So the insurance company determines that the reason is the submitted service was not reasonable or necessary, and no other service would have been reasonable or necessary in that situation. So that basically means medical necessity was not met. So make sure your client meets medical necessity before you try to bill the insurance company. If you get somebody that you can't diagnose and really doesn't need therapy, or you don't think it's appropriate to bill the insurance company, just don't do it. Make them self-pay or something like that. Or refer them on to somebody else if they don't accept that answer and they still want to use their insurance. Make sure your diagnosis is supported by your clinical facts. So when you're doing your assessment, make sure that you're documenting all the diagnostic criteria that would support that diagnosis that you're going to give the client. So I do talk more about medical necessity in my course. If you're interested in checking it out, let me know. I'll give you more information about the course. And I don't want to get into it too much here, but additionally, I just have it documented in my progress notes, medical necessity. So I make sure I'm checking that every single time I see a client. A second reason they would want all the money back for medical records reviews would be that no service was actually provided, meaning you actually billed on the wrong date of service, or you just billed when a session actually didn't happen. So all I can say to that is, yikes, don't do that. Be really careful. Make sure you're putting down the date that you actually saw the client, because that can start to look like insurance fraud, and that gets real messy. So just be super careful about what you're doing and how you're billing on what days. The next thing that can happen is what they call a partial repayment or recoupment. And there's a couple reasons that can happen. First, the submitted service was not reasonable and necessary, but a lower level of service could have been reasonable and necessary. So, for example, you may have filed for a 90837 and the insurance company believes you should have only filed for a 90834. So make sure you document medical necessity. If you're doing 90837s, make sure you document why you need the longer sessions. It's really important because there are some insurance companies out there that don't think 90837 should happen unless it's for, evidence-based treatment, treating PTSD with EMDR, something like that. So just make sure you're documenting if you believe that length of session is appropriate. The second reason they might ask for partial recoupment is the submitted service was upcoded and a lower level of service was actually performed. So this is essentially the same thing. Let's say you added an interactive complexity code to your billing for that session. They may deem from your note that that session didn't actually meet the criteria for interactive complexity, but that it really only met the criteria for a regular therapy session. So they might say, well, we'll pay you for the 90837, but we're not paying you for the extra added interactive complexity that you're billing for here. So that could be another reason. So make sure you're meeting that criteria if you're billing that CPT code. Lastly, it may be an incorrect code that was submitted and caused a higher payment to be made. I don't really see many of us making this mistake, but perhaps you put like a 90791 instead of a 90837, and the insurance company doesn't feel that you provided an assessment during that time based on the note that you wrote. If your note looks like a progress note or psychotherapy note, they're going to say we're going to take the money back for the assessment that you're billing for and just bump it on down to a 90837 or a 90834 even. So pay attention to that. So those are the reasons why you might have to repay insurance companies. Most of them are totally avoidable if you go back through and make these changes and be careful about what you're doing. You might not have this problem at all. So if this does happen to you, if you do get a request for recoupment, you might have some of the same thoughts I had, like, oh, why am I doing this? Or did I make a mistake? But I want you to know that you do have recourse if this happens to you. There are things you can do to protect yourself. So I encourage you to remember that you have options for disputing these repayment requests. Some people just say, oh, well, I guess I got to pay it back, and they just pay it back and don't think anything else about it. You don't have to do that. So first, I always request a hold on the repayment that they're asking me to do. Sometimes I'll say, like, we want it in the next 15 days. You can just call them up and ask for an extension. A lot of times they'll give you like a 60-day extension, and that'll give you time to sort of investigate the problem and figure out if there's a fix for it. Like we were saying before, if it's the wrong insurance policy or something like that, you could go and file with the other insurance company and get the money back so you're not totally out of pocket with this stuff. Or you can, request it from the client if it looks like that's the issue. So next, when you research the recoupment request, you could check the letter to see what the actual reason is for the recoupment. If you don't see a reason, make sure you call and find out what's going on, like why they're doing this. It might be a mistake. Once you know the reason, at least you can try to fix it. So definitely call if it's not already on the letter that you get. Also, make sure that it's the right client and the dates of service are accurate. You want to just double check that because sometimes they're asking for money that's not even related to you. So you just want to check and make sure that they're actually asking for the right recoupment. Another thing you can do is you can check the contract, make sure the reason is actually a valid reason and it's outlined in your contract. So your contract might say, we can't recoup after a year and it's been 13 months or something. If it says that, you've got recourse. You can file an appeal just based on that. Next, if you believe that they are indeed incorrect, you can just appeal the request. A lot of times the procedure for appealing is right there on the letter. So you can do that. And I would encourage you to do it if you think they're in error. Even if you're not sure, you can always appeal it, just see what happens. I've appealed a couple of recoupments and I've just never even heard back from them. And they never came back and collected the money. So, fingers crossed that they never do, but this has been years now. I don't know, something about the appeal, maybe they just drop it. So that's an option too. If you think it's appealable, definitely appeal it. Usually it's not as bad as you think. It's just a quick little letter you have to write. And lastly, if they decide against you with the appeal and you still think you're right, consider reaching out to your state insurance commissioner and discuss the situation. You just never know. They may be in violation of state laws. They might not be able to do that to you. I mean, who knows? Some of these insurance companies are national and there might be something there. So it doesn't hurt to ask. That's their job, and they can research it for you and let you know more about it. So anyway, I hope all of this information helps. A lot of this stuff is avoidable if you just put the right procedures and policies in place and hold your clients accountable if they give you the wrong information. So if you have any questions, let me know, and I hope you will drop any questions in the comments or reach out to me through my email. My email is info@kimtolson.com, and that's KYMTolson.com. If you want to know more about my insurance billing course, let me know. I'm going to put the link to that too in the comments. Okay, take care.